In today's Necron video, we're going to talk about the Necron Chapter Approved. Do we really approve?
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, today I'm going to run through all of the Necron rules in the recently released Chapter Approved. Before that though, if you are new to the channel and you love Necrons, then please give me a sub and hit the bell button so you don't miss a Necron upload. Okay, so we are still waiting for our Necron Codex. As far as I'm aware, the Codex has been rumoured to come out at the end of March, so it's a good way off yet. However, we have had the Chapter Approved, which came out at the end of 2017, and in there are some updated rules for Necrons. So let's have a look at these rules and see if they're going to make a difference to our armies. Right, well first of all we have a brand new warlord trait called Enduring Will. Any of our warlords can take this except for a Catan. So if you take this warlord trait, you can reduce any damage inflicted onto your warlord by 1 to a minimum of 1. So for example, if your warlord fails a saving throw against a weapon that inflicts 3 damage, they will only take 2 wounds. Now this seems quite a good warlord trait, especially if we're being a bit more aggressive with our warlord. Imagine Nemesis doing a few of his little tricks that he can do and then getting into close combat and having +1 attack. That's very nice, but is it better than the warlord traits from the main rulebook? Well, there are 3 warlord traits in the main rulebook. The first one gives us +1 attack when we charge with our warlord. However, we've got 2 more warlord traits to have a look at. Now the next warlord trait, Inspiring Leader, from the main rulebook, gives any units within 3 inches of your warlord +1 to their leadership. That makes our Necron units have leadership 11. That's a really useful warlord trait to have, and the great thing about this trait, it affects any unit within 3 inches. So potentially you could have 3 or 4 units actually making use of this particular rule. Now the last warlord trait is just on the warlord, and if he takes a wound, you roll a dice. On a 6, he doesn't take the wound. So effectively you get an additional 6+ save. It's okay, but 6+, 1 in 6 chance of getting it, it probably isn't really worth taking. And I think out of all of those 3 warlord traits, and indeed the new one that we have in Chapter Approved, I still think that Inspiring Leader is the best one, purely for the fact that it can affect more than 1 unit. And having that leadership 11 is really good for Necrons and really helps us survive. So whilst I wouldn't necessarily rule out the new Chapter Approved warlord trait, it is usable, and as I said, especially if you're going to be a bit more attacking with your HQ. But I don't think it's a game changer by any stretch of the imagination. However, we've got some more rules in the form of stratagems, so let's have a look and see if they're any better. Okay, so the first stratagem is Repair Subroutines. You use this stratagem at the start of your turn before making any reanimation protocol rolls. Select a canoptic unit from your army that is on the battlefield. That unit gains reanimation protocol ability until the end of your turn. The good thing about it is that you choose your stratagem before you actually do your RP rolls, and that means you can be quite selective, so you're not going to waste this by giving the stratagem to a unit which maybe doesn't take any casualties and you've wasted your points. At least you can optimise when you're going to use this particular stratagem. Now just imagine you have a unit of 6 wraiths on the table. Maybe you take casualties, maybe 4 or 5 of them die. Then that would be a good time to use your stratagem. So 2 command points to allow you to have a 5+ roll to make those wraiths stand up. Remember, when they stand up, they come up with the full wounds. And I think this is actually probably a very good way to use this particular stratagem. It is situational, but I think it's definitely one to consider and to remember for your army, for those units that don't have RP rolls. I suppose the question is 2 command points too expensive for this stratagem? Well, maybe a little bit. Having said that, I think 1 command point is probably too cheap for this stratagem. I think in an ideal world I would put this stratagem at about 1.5 points. But of course we don't have any half points, so 2 points it is. Right, that's that stratagem. Let's have a look at the next one. Okay, so the second stratagem that we have is Enhanced Reanimation Protocol rolls. Now this stratagem is also 2 command points. Now how it works is once you've done your reanimation protocol rolls, if you roll any 1s, you can re-roll them. So you have an extra chance to get your models back up. However, I think quite clearly 2 command points is way overcosted for this particular stratagem, and personally I would just never use this stratagem for 2 points. 1 point, possibly. 2 points, no, definitely not. So that's our new stratagems, but how do they compare to the ones in the main rulebook? The first stratagem, Command Reroll, is perfect for Necrons, allowing you to reroll 1 dice per phase. And considering most of our output damage is a D6 orientated result rather than a fixed 3 result, which arguably I think it should be, it means that you have a chance of actually doing some more damage than you would normally using a reroll for the stratagem, and it's only 1 command point. The second one is Counter Defense, and again I think this is perfect for Necrons. Now Necrons used to always be Initiative 2 in the old days, but now it's whoever charges first, strikes first. This is a massive bonus for Necrons, especially assault units. Now if your enemy assaults you, you can spend 2 command points strategically to get some heavy hitting assault units doing the business that they need to do. It is 2 command points, it is quite expensive, but at a critical time can be very useful. Now I've recently proved how great this stratagem is when I was playing my buddy and his orcs. He assaulted with a weaker unit first, made a little mistake, and I jumped on that 2 command points and I got my Light Guard striking first in his phase. Really powerful. Check out the battle report there if you're interested in seeing that. Right, on to the last stratagem from the main rulebook, Insane Bravery. This is also 2 command points, but lets you automatically pass 1 morale test without having to take morale. Very useful for our Necrons, especially big blobs of warriors where you take lots of casualties. Use 2 command points, auto rally, and then you can use your reanimation protocols to get those models standing up. And of course if you have a cryptic in with that unit, you've got a 4+ RP roll, whereas if you hadn't used those 2 command points, that unit potentially could have been wiped out. So the 3 stratagems in the main rulebook are really useful for Necrons, and I think those are going to be my go-to ones still at the moment, with the exception of repair subroutines now and again under the right circumstances. Okay, so that is the stratagems, but we also have a relic, so let's have a chat about that. Okay, so the relic, the Veil of Darkness, yay! It's back! Why did it ever go?
Necrons!
So yes, the Veil of Darkness is back, and I think this is quite promising for Necrons. Hopefully when we get our actual codex, we're going to have some more really cool stratagems like this. I'm personally hoping that Solar Pulse comes back, where we can use a couple of command points, pop off Solar Pulse, and then our enemy is -1 ballistic skill for that turn. If we can do that once per game, I think that will really help us defend alpha strikes from our enemies. However, we haven't got that one yet, but what we have got is Veil of Darkness, and this is very promising. So let's have a look at it. So the Veil of Darkness, once per battle at the end of any of your movement phases, the bearer can use the Veil of Darkness. When they do so, the bearer and up to 1 friendly Dynasty infantry unit within 3 inches of the bearer are removed from the battlefield. You then set up the bearer and the second unit you choose, if any, anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 9 inches from an enemy model. The second unit must be set up wholly within 6 inches of the bearer. Now the good thing about this is it's done at the end of the movement phase, which means if you don't have the appropriate unit within 3 inches of the bearer, then at least you can move and get within 3 inches. Now it's worth noting that once again you can't take this if your warlord is a Catan. Now being able to teleport across the table is incredibly useful for many reasons. Either defensively, if you want to get out of range of something which is coming towards you, just teleport across the table. It can be really good for grabbing objectives at the end of the game, maybe even line breaker, and it can be incredibly good if you want to be aggressive. Combine this Veil of Darkness with the Deceiver. Again, check out that battle report that I linked you up to, because I'm using some Veil of Darkness tactics in that video along with the Deceiver. Now the other great thing about this is when you come down more than 9 inches away, not more than 12 inches away. and that means you can get within rapid fire range. So potentially you could give the vow to a cryptic and teleport a big squad of warriors, or maybe immortals with Gauze weapons, across the table, get within rapid fire range and do some serious damage. And you can do that of course at any time during the game, but it is only once per battle. So I'm really happy to see Veil of Darkness back for Necrons. It's always been there, I'm used to playing it, and I'm very happy it's back. And I think, to be fair, out of everything that's in the Chapter Approved book for Necrons, the Veil of Darkness is the one thing which is worthwhile having. Now also in Chapter Approved there are some army point amendments. Now for Necrons we only got 2 amendments for 2 Forge World models, nothing for the standard codex, which does suggest that maybe the codex is pretty much ready to go. It's probably already printed, we're just waiting for the release schedule to come out, I would imagine, who knows. However, 2 amendments for Forge World. One of them is the pylon, the Gauze pylon, which has gone up 75 points. Arguably, fair enough, the Gauze pylon is pretty powerful. I have made a video on the Gauze pylon there, if you're interested in checking that out. Now the other thing is the Night Shroud, which has been reduced in points by 50 points, and that's a very welcome reduction. In actual fact, turning that unit into quite a useful unit for the new points that it's at. I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on what you think about Chapter Approved and the new rules for Necrons. Let me know in the comments box below. Beam me up!